Hi, brothers and sisters, good evening. This is just another reflection, I hope, of some personal spiritual help during this strange time. One's always looking for the magic title. I'm not sure I found it, but this one is Communing Beyond Communion. That's the title. May be inspired by this. I read this just the other day. Communion is indeed the normal, permanent condition of live Christians, whose duty is to cherish it. All their lives are lived in a spirit of communion, and it bursts into flame every time the sacrifice is completed with the reception of the body and blood. So that author is distinguishing what he calls the spirit of communion, which is meant to inform our whole life: communion with Christ, communion with one another, communion with God, and so forth, and sacramental communion. But communion in the broad sense is, he calls it, the normal, permanent condition of live Christians. Sacramental communion is like the fire for that. Well, we can say it all again in another way. Holy Communion leads to communing. It is given us for that. The Eucharist is celebrated for living. At this time when communion has gone virtual, I'd like to look at these wider dimensions, these echoes and repercussions in daily life, and focus on that normal, permanent communing that Holy Communion makes possible for us. I hope I haven't made it all completely incomprehensible. The Eucharist beyond church walls, if you like. And three forms of this come to my mind. But I'd like to lay a foundation. First, we're in the Easter season, and there is a tradition that when he rose from the dead, Jesus first appeared privately, as it were, to his mother. Now, the Gospels don't say he did, but then they don't say that he didn't. So we can accept this or not as we wish. However, an Austrian poet who died almost a century ago in 1926, Rainer Maria Rilke, dedicated a memorable poem to this imagined meeting on Easter Day, Easter morning, of Jesus and Mary. He wasn't a particularly Christian man, but he took Christian themes sometimes. And it is called The Quietening of Mary. Mary surely was shaken by all she'd been through. And Jesus, in the poem, Jesus comes to his mother and in a gesture of reassurance puts his hand on her shoulder. Then, goes the poem, they began, quiet as trees in spring, infinitely and at once, their season of utmost communing. Now, it's hard to catch the beauty of the original. It's very hard to put it into poetic English, really. But the point lies in the last two lines, that they began their season of utmost communing. Obviously, this mother and son always had a unique relationship, but after the shared horror of Calvary and its reversal in the resurrection, this relationship must have moved into a new dimension, must have moved into an ultimate intimacy, the beginning of their relationship in heaven. So it's worth pausing on that post-resurrection union of Jesus and Mary, because it stands, if you like, at the beginning of our Easter season. It underpins it, and it symbolizes the relationship between Christ and the church, which is opened up for us by Easter and Pentecost. It evokes that normal, permanent condition I began with. And really the whole New Testament is a song to the new communion which the new covenant has made possible. Think of St. Paul, for example, as just one plucked out, really, example. Now that we have been justified by faith, we are at peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ. It is through him by faith that we have been admitted into God's favour, in which we are living, and look forward exultantly to God's glory. Well, maybe Eastertide and lockdown are an opportunity for appreciating a little more the breadth and the length and the height and the depth of what Christ and the Holy Spirit have made possible. And this ultimate, utmost communion. Imagine that you've been given the very best and latest PC, but have hardly begun to explore all that it enables to do. Or imagine indeed, that your great aunt has died and left you a chateau in the Loire Valley, and you've got the title deeds of the chateau, you've even got the key, and maybe you've been there, but you've only spent a single night there. And there's all the treasures of this castle and its beautiful grounds and so on still lie before you. You have yet to discover all of that. As Jesus said to the Samaritan woman, if you but knew the gift of God. That's true for each of us, if we but knew the gift of God. So, question, how in lockdown can ultimate communing be begun? How can our daily life be a holy communion? Where's the sacramental matter, as it were, with which the sacrament can come about? Well, I'd just like to mention 3 things, all close at hand, all for cherishing, and all quite simple. So number 1, St. Benedict wrote a rule really for households of monks. You could say he wrote for households in lockdown, because he did expect monks to be at home, a vain hope, but he tried. And one of the many striking things his 6th century rule insists on is respect for things, material things, the objects around us, the objects we use on a daily basis. St. Benedict's monastery has got 2 focal points, the oratory and the kitchen. It has got 2 tables, the altar and the table we eat at in the refectory. They are both holy. The bread of both of them is holy. They both involve service of the Lord and of the brethren. They are connected like the 2 great commandments are connected. There's a flow between the 2. So he tells the monk called the cellarer, the monk in charge of the domestic economy, it's a very striking sentence. Let him look upon the utensils, the tools of the monastery, as upon the sacred vessels of the altar. The pots and pans, the cutlery and crockery, the cupboards and chairs are sacred. So, he says again, if anyone treat the things of the monastery in a slovenly or careless manner, let him be corrected. He insists everything is to be kept clean and in good condition. And if someone working in the kitchen or the storeroom or the bakery or the garden breaks or loses something, he must go before the abbot and the whole community at once and disclose it. He wants the cooking to be done well. Well, God walks among the pots and pans, said St. Teresa, and St. Benedict would have liked that. He expects respect for what we might call the paten and the chalice, or the bread and wine, the sacramental matter of our daily life. And he's rather fond of lists and inventories, and he seems to enjoy mentioning things, items of clothing and socks and shoes and beds and bedding, needles, writing materials, belts and knives. Well, we would have to add, tablets, phones and cars. For St. Benedict, daily household life is a kind of Eucharist. Christ is present there as well as in the church. The whole of life turns sacramental. Cherishing things, caring for them, looking after them, respecting them, is a way of cherishing the Lord and sensing his presence. What's made can connect us with our Maker. Now, I don't mean we have to turn our lives into a perpetual Japanese tea party. That would be a bit much. But it is good to remember that things are not simply ours. The Lord's is the earth and its fullness, says a psalm. Our world, we try to recycle, but it's a bit of a battle. And we live in a world of plastic wrapping, a throwaway culture, as Pope Francis often says, where everything can be replaced and where the only value of things is their price. Things are not respected for being what they are, works of nature, works of art, works of God. St. Benedict really was an ecologist before the time. And, when you look at the litter during lockdown, there are fewer waste collections now, and it gets worse and worse in some of the streets. It's not nice. By contrast, St. Benedict, like the prophet Zechariah, would have us anticipate the day when, says the prophet, every pot in Jerusalem and Judah shall be sacred to the Lord of hosts. I bet you've never heard that quoted before. Lockdown slows us down, and slowing us down can help us sense things we normally don't. Well, closer even than the things around us, and the things we wear and all those things, closer still is the now, the present moment. The sacrament of the present moment is a famous phrase, isn't it? Fine phrase, attributed to a 17th, 18th century French Jesuit Jean-Pierre de Caussade. Now, he was an apostle, really, throughout his life, of a very simple theme. We're called to commune with God, he says, to live lives united to his will. This is holiness, this is grace, thy will be done. But where do we find this will? This is the puzzle. Well, he would say, the word is very close to you. God's will comes to us in the ordinary events of daily life. It's in front of our nose, really. It's our ordinary responsibilities. It's in the ups and downs of every day. We do God's will by doing what we have to do and undergoing what we undergo, the painful things and the joyful things. God is at work everywhere. He's insistent on that. Everything that takes place within us, around us, or through us, he says, contains and conceals the divine action. Now, he often wrote to nuns whose lives in those days were indeed in permanent lockdown. And his message was, cherish the present moment. Leave the past to God's mercy and the future to his providence. Don't live in bitterness about the past or in fantasies about the future. Live in the now, because that's where Christ comes to us and we meet him. Life is simple. I often think there's something very beautiful, sacramental, just in the shape of a day. It has its sunrise and its sunsets, its phases, its rise and fall. And perhaps our current enforced stillness can give us more sense of this. Every day is really a host that we can offer to God on the basis of our baptismal priesthood. And it's no surprise that de Caussade draws a comparison with the Eucharist. The will of God being broken for us, as it were, into the events of each day. How many people understand, he asks, that every cross, every action, every attraction, according to the designs of God, gives God to us in a way that nothing can better explain than a comparison with the Holy Eucharist? Don't we know that by all things and people and by every event, The divine love desires to unite us to himself, that he has ordained, arranged, or allows everything about us, everything that happens to us with a view to this union. He uses the worst things and the best things for this, the most distressing events and the pleasantest ones. If this is true, every moment, this is him, if this is true, every moment of our lives may be a kind of communion with the divine love. And this communion of every moment may do as much as that which we receive in the communion of the body and blood of the Son of God. This latter certainly is effective sacramentally, which the former isn't. But on the other hand, how much more frequently can it not be renewed? And then he goes, oh, great feast, oh, perpetual festival. All you who thirst, he says, learn that you have not far to go to find the fountains of living waters. It flows very close to you in the present moment. Therefore, hasten to find it. It's through the sacrament of ordinary life, the here and now, in the furnace of each day, that we really learn with a kind of knowledge of the heart, a real knowledge, not a book knowledge, about God, who God is. We learn the truth about him, the truth about ourselves, and we can commune with him. Well, lastly, very close again and part of the same thing, another dimension for communing beyond communion is simply one another. This is a difficult one. But if we're not alone, it's those we are locked down with. Now, we all know the challenging side of that, and we're quite good at being part of the challenge ourselves to other people. But there's an old monastic saying, your brother is your salvation. And we can say, your brother is your Easter. Your brother is your cross and your resurrection. And for brother, you can substitute wife, husband, child, parent, friend. Whoever does not love his brother whom he can see cannot love God whom he cannot see. My brother is my Easter. Well, there's a good little story that goes with that from the life of St. Benedict. As a young man, he became a hermit in some wild country away from Rome, and he lived in a cave for about 3 years with minimal human contact. And it happened to be Easter, and the local parish priest some miles away was sitting down to a good meal to mark the end of Lent. And then the voice said to him, well, here are you sitting down to your nice Easter meal while my servant Benedict is going hungry. Well, the priest was a good man. Up he got, put together a doggy bag, and went off into the wilds to find Benedict. He had to climb cliffs, navigate valleys, cross ditches. Finally, he found him. They sat down and had a chat about spiritual things. Then the priest said, let's eat. It's Easter. Now, so cut off, so locked down had the young Benedict been that he didn't even know it was Easter. But he made a beautiful reply to the priest. I have the grace of seeing you, so it must be Easter. There we are. Well, it will be good when we can see each other again, won't it? But even now, those I do see are an Easter. And Easter, like the meeting of Jesus and Mary, can begin our season of ultimate communion. So let's cherish the things around us, cherish each day and its happenings, cherish one another, and we will be close to the Lord as he is close to us. Thank you.